Please be aware that today's episode has an extra content warning, as it has references to depression and suicide. Listener discretion is advised. Before we jump in, a gentle reminder that the stories shared on this podcast include discussions about chronic illness, medical experiences, mental health, and other sensitive topics. While we share our own experiences and perspectives, this podcast should not be considered medical advice. If you have concerns about your health, please speak with a qualified healthcare professional. We believe these conversations matter, but we also know that they can be a lot. Please take what you need, leave what you don't, but most importantly, take care of yourself while listening. Welcome to Outside the Waiting Room. I'm Harriet.
And I'm Olivia, and I can't believe we're up to episode 5 already. You may have seen on our social, we've decided to cut to podcast episodes fortnightly instead of weekly. We hope that that is going to mean that we can be a bit more consistent with our posting.
Yeah, we need to focus on ourselves. If we're going to advocate for looking after yourself and listening to your own body, then we also need to walk that walk.
So for today's episode, we're going to talk about trying to fit in with a chronic illness in today's society and what that looks like and what we've learned, and just some little tips and tricks that we thought our younger selves should have been able to hear.
Yeah, things that we wish we had known, and that things get easier, but that doesn't mean that you don't go through a bunch to figure that out. So with that said, Olivia, when did you first realize that you were different? I know that you touched on this a little bit in your episode. Do you want to expand on that a bit more, and when else that might have shown up in your life?
Yeah, my early years, I don't remember not fitting in that sense. It was once, as I touched on before, it was once I started school. But again, it wasn't something that was super obvious all of the time. For me, it was things when I struggled to do things physically that the other kids could do. So things like cross country or gymnastics or just physical things that I was like, why can the other kids do that and I can't? But I don't think I had an understanding of why I couldn't do it. It was just my body couldn't do it. I mean, we were like 5, 6. So of course you don't really understand. So I think for me, my first memories, we both touched on this before, when you would get pulled out of class for appointments or blood tests or physio, and that was different to the other kids. But there wasn't the same emotion attached to missing out that became more apparent as I got older. Those younger years, I think, as we talked about before, you're quite innocent and you can't grasp what's truly going on. And you take a lot from your parents, and we just managed. It was just our lives. What about for you? What would you say?
Yeah, probably similar. There was that innocence in childhood where I knew I couldn't do what other kids did. And as you said, I didn't really know why. I just couldn't. It was more when you'd have sleepovers, and it was the list of things that mum had to spell off to parents around communications. And if I got a temperature, call them right away because I would need to go to hospital. So that was when I knew that things were slightly different. But similar to you, like my parents tried to, I guess, keep everything as normal as possible. I tried to do out of school activities, and they wouldn't discourage me not to do it. I guess the whole fitting in never really felt like a problem as a kid anyway. There were things that I was quite embarrassed about as a kid, like a scar I have from multiple surgeries. And then another one was because I had such a high dose of prednisone when I was 8. I got a lot of water retention. So when I went back to my original weight, I had a huge amount of stretch marks, especially on my legs. I was so embarrassed by it. I hated wearing shorts. I hated wearing skirts.
It's quite interesting because I guess we've both talked about more the physical side. And I know for me, as you became a teenager, it was more about the emotional, and that's when that piece really hit. And it's quite interesting how we've both described it was the physical changes, and for me, the things I physically couldn't do that was a lot more apparent for us in our childhood.
Yeah, it probably just comes down to innocence of it. You're comparing what other kids can do, and what they can do is what you see physically, I guess. And also, let's not forget, we grew up in a time when the internet wasn't really a thing. Therefore, there wasn't social media. So it's not as though you got a glimpse into anyone else's life outside of school.
Yeah, quite nice in a way. We got to experience it. That piece that you were talking about before about sleepovers, when you were younger, did you like going on sleepovers or school camps or things where you had to stay away from home?
I hated it. I really hated it. I was scared. I was so scared that I would get sick. And the sleepover side wasn't as bad. It was the school camps. They were the ones that were really scary for me. I really struggled with those.
I'm exactly the same, but to the point of staying anywhere that wasn't at home. Even with my grandparents, I would have so much anxiety. It's always been quite a thing. And I don't think I fully understood it until I've gotten older and realized I always felt my sickest at night. You feel your most vulnerable. And it was always when my pain was the worst. Especially when I was younger, it was always mum and dad were the ones that could fix my pain because I didn't understand what to do. So I always had so much anxiety around nighttime and pain and just being away from home in my comfort. It's quite a thing, and I just don't like being away from home. And I know I don't, but then there's also that deeper, that much deeper level of it and that layer of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder whether the whole you get sicker at night, but you're not. It's just that there's nothing else going on to distract you from the pain. I always struggled when it came to being away from home was that I struggled to sleep. Struggled to sleep because I was in pain. And so I didn't like the idea that I would be awake and in someone else's home. Yeah. But you're right. I always felt like if I was going to get sick, it was going to be overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of always did end up that way.
Yeah, and in regards to like school camps and often probably with friends, we would have been so busy during the day trying to keep up that by the time we did get to nighttime, we would have well and truly overdone it. So of course our symptoms are going to be worse and then throw in a strange environment. But I'm still bad. Like to this day, I don't like staying away from home.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite thing to do. Maybe that is why, because I was always scared that I'd get sick. Were there other things around your social life that you felt you missed out on, whether that was as a child or a teenager?
It definitely became more obvious in those teenage years. Things like birthday parties or just parties or dinners or things that were often at night. Those were often things that I would either miss out on or have to really plan for. Also in my high school years, I missed quite a few actually just physically being at school, my last kind of 2 years of school. So that was another thing. The social life, definitely. You miss out on things.
Yeah, the social side of stuff as a teenager is definitely so much harder. But I don't think I realized at the time that it
No,
was
no.
harder. Yeah, I don't know about you, but like pushed
Mm.
too far a lot of
Mhm.
the time. So I didn't necessarily, or maybe I was missing out on things, but I didn't see it that way because I just pushed further and further into being able to do what everyone else was doing. But it was the aftermath.
Yeah. Do you think you would sacrifice your own health for that then?
Yes, absolutely.
I know for me, in my teenage years, I would often push and push and push to the point where you would physically become very unwell. But I would have rather, this sounds very backwards, done that instead of missing out. I
Yes.
was like, I can deal with this pain or this is my own fault, but I don't want to miss out. It's really sad what we kind of would put our bodies through in order to try and have that.
I for sure pushed.
Mm.
And I knew that there was going to be consequences for pushing through.
Mm.
And now when I reflect on it as an adult, it feels stupid. Like, why would you do that? Because the risk is so high. But at the time, I wasn't thinking this is going to have XYZ impact. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a bit more tired and I'll feel sick for a few days. I'll be in pain for a few days. I didn't think, well, this could end up really bad. What's the long-term impacts of that? It just didn't even cross my mind as something that I should be concerned about.
That's probably a key teenage brain thing as well. You're very much living in that moment instead of thinking, what is the impact of this going to be?
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, teenager years for me were difficult. I found actually my 20s the trickiest part. I always felt I couldn't do the things that other people were able to do. So watching my friends do their big overseas travels or move overseas, well, I can't do that. because that's too hard. Change all my specialists if I want, like, for instance, I wanted to move to the UK. It's just like, well, I can't do that because I'd have to find 5 different specialists, and that was complex as it was. So it felt I couldn't do that stuff because my health was a factor, and it felt like I was anchored to where I was, and I hated that.
And then you see how easy other people can just pack up their lives and just go anywhere.
Yeah, and it's just that freedom that I wanted. You obviously struggled a lot in your teenage years. What were the things that impacted you the most through that time?
Mine was the pain my body was in all the time, and I didn't fully understand why. I just remember trying anything and everything in that real desperation mode, and nothing was helping. And no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't get on top of this pain and this sickness. And that does something to a person. When you live with that amount of pain and that amount of heaviness, it's a really hard place to pull yourself out of, especially as a teenager. And we've talked about it before, how you can be so determined and driven. You can do everything right, but my body is just not working and responding the way that it should be. The harder I pushed to try and find wellness, the more my body fought back, and I just ended up, in quite a hole mentally. And I feel like you can deal with one part. So physically, if things are really bad, but my mental health is really good, so I can deal with the crappiness. Or my mental health might slide a bit, but my physical side might be okay. When they both collide and turn really bad, you've got nothing to hold on to. And I feel like I can't do it justice with words of what a scary place that is when you don't even have any of that to cling to. Yeah.
I resonate with that so much. I don't know how to articulate that very well either. I think when you don't have physical health, when that's bad, and then you add on the mental health side, it's like you go, what's the point? I've tried everything. I've tried to do all the right things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet it's still not working for me. So what's the point? And in terms of you being a teenager going through that and having friends that are teenagers, what was your friendship group like at the time? Did it change anything?
Yeah. So I hid a lot of my health and masked a lot of that. My friends could physically see what was going on, but I kept a lot of that emotional side to myself because I think it was just too big and I didn't know how to deal with it. So how would they know? And there was a bit of protection. I think I wanted to protect them. I let in maybe like 2 or 3 of my really, really close friends. And it's quite interesting because they were the ones who either had things going on for themselves with their health, or they had loved ones who were chronically ill. So I guess there was that real base understanding. And I think someone who has been through chronic illness themselves or loves someone, they get it on a level that some other people don't. So I think just that base understanding and the way that you can be completely honest is a bit easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had an awesome group of friends. They were always so wonderful at still inviting me to things and just being awesome friends, full stop. But yeah, I had a lot of what was going on because I didn't know how to deal with it. What about you?
Yeah, I too had a really strong group of friends throughout school, and still now a lot of them I'm still good friends with. I also had it all though. I was still invited, I was still asked to come to things, albeit it wasn't everything because I couldn't drink. So I know that it was for them probably like, oh, well, she wouldn't want to come.
Yes. Yeah.
But that's not really the point.
Yeah.
It's the invite that is welcomed always. And it's the case in any instance. I know people now who have children and they don't get invited to things anymore because the assumption is they can't come. And it's not about assuming, it's about asking.
Always ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's a real key piece in that, eh? Always
Yeah.
ask.
Always ask.
Yeah.
I was definitely hiding it all. I didn't want to talk about it. And they talked about it in my episode when I was 16 and I faced death. I don't really know that I actually ever said that as a teenager to my friends. They knew I was really, really sick. It's probably only been in recent years that I've been very honest about those conversations, but I don't think I was having them at the time. Maybe it's a mixture of I didn't want to face it, but as you said, it's also a protection thing. I didn't want to I've always felt like I was a burden. And I know now that is not the case, but I always felt like I was burdening people with my issues. And so therefore, if I didn't say it to anyone, then I didn't have to worry about burdening them. And so therefore, I would just hold it to myself. such a bad way of coping, but unfortunately, I didn't have any strategies, probably similar to you. No one told me how to manage this because there wasn't any understanding of what it could do to your mental health, and mental health wasn't really talked about. So therefore, it was just get on with
So, if you could talk to teenage Harriet now,
it.
knowing what you know now, or if anyone's listening and they are teenagers, do you have any advice or any tips or tricks or just anything that you wish that you could have heard or known?
I wish I had known that I wasn't a burden. I wish I had been more honest, not only with myself, but with my friends, because you learn who your true friends are by
You
the ones that
totally
stick
do.
by you.
You
And
totally
so if you're honest and someone can't handle it, then are they really the right people to surround yourself with? And I just think it would have made things so much easier just to be honest with it. My advice would be, if you are a teenager and you are going through similar things, if you aren't getting the help on how to cope with what's happened as a child, if you've been chronically ill or you're newly diagnosed, is to seek some sort of counselling or therapy, even if right now you feel fine. It's better to learn the coping strategies and mechanisms now when you don't need them, so that if you ever do, and hopefully you don't, you know how to pull on them. What about you?
That's such a key advice. It's not underestimating that social and emotional impact. I wish, as we talked before, that pressure and just that pain that I would put myself through to try to keep up with the rest of the world. And yeah, my life looked different, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's not, my life isn't any less meaningful because it looks a little bit different. And so I think I just wish that I'd been a bit kinder to myself and just knowing what a heavy load I was carrying. I wish someone had told me that, because I would see that as not coping or not being strong enough, when it was, this load is way too much for one person to be carrying, let alone a teenager who doesn't fully know what's going on.
What about your young adult years? You went to uni and you studied, but how did you find navigating your new adult, quote unquote, adult self, and managing chronic health as well?
It was a different push, I guess, for me, in the sense of I've made this decision. It felt a bit more hopeful, I guess, to study something that I wanted to study. I'd taken a bit more control back in that sense. I still lived at home while I studied. I needed that, and that was okay, and that worked best for me. But I look back in those years as well, and I pushed so hard to try and keep up and to get through and I did, and I'm so proud of myself that I got through, but that did a lot of damage to my body, and probably spent years trying to get back to where I was beforehand. There were times when on my placement, I would go out and visit a client and then come back and throw up because I was just in so much pain and just so unwell, and then try to pull myself back together and then go again. By the end of the day, I would be completely wrecked and spend the weekend in bed and then do it all again. And that was about 4 years of doing that. And then we touched on last week was I got my degree, but then couldn't work the career that I'd hoped to work. So there was that brief piece in that. I like to think now that I've come to a place where I'm more mindful of my body, and it not being a bad thing, but it being like, okay, how can I make this work for me? And motherhood's been a massive part in that for me. I have almost had to learn that self-love that I haven't been giving myself. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's tricky, especially if you had a career or that doesn't quite happen. It's another that is taken from you because of an illness that you didn't ask for. It's another layer of grief and unfairness that comes with the heaviness of holding all the things that we have to carry.
So that was kind of my experience with my 20s. What about for you?
My 20s were the hardest part. I didn't finish uni. I was working full time in a corporate role, and none of my friends were doing that. So it was just another layer of being different. But I still tried to push through. I couldn't drink. I still went out and tried to keep up with everyone. There was some times where I'd be still up when the sun was coming up. Just stupid stuff like that. I was putting my body through just absolute hell for the point of fitting in and not wanting to be different. Everyone always pointed it out when we were out and would be like, "Hey, Joe, this must be so crap for you." And like, yeah, if I'm honest, it was. It was awful. I hated it. I just felt like I had to do those things. And it put such an impact on my body. I was getting sick all the time. And it was in my mid to late 20s when the heaviness of everything compounded.
Mm.
And it was just all about too much. And I didn't know how to cope, and I wasn't sharing what I was going through because I didn't want to be a burden. And there's always this narrative of, oh, you're so strong. Get that all the time. And
Mhm.
yeah, okay, that might be true. But when that's the narrative that you've had your whole life, even just the smallest amount of weakness feels like a failure. And that's how I felt. And I didn't want to be a burden anymore, basically. I think that was the wake up call for me. I needed to do something about this, and I needed to stop pretending my life was like everyone else's. And I needed to figure out a way to accept them. And by doing that, I was so scared that I would lose friends. But we established that my true friends,
Yeah.
they weren't going anywhere. My 20s was just, it was really rough. I wish I could go back and tell me that it's not worth putting your body through that pressure to fit in for the sake of what your own health, because it's really what it came down to. But still had to live, right? Similar to you, we can't put our lives on hold. Otherwise, you just end up in a bubble. But I wish I had no one to listen to my own body and know when to stop. Yeah,
And also know that you are not a burden.
yeah, that too,
Mm.
definitely.
Do you believe that now? Like when
That
I
I'm a burden.
do you believe that you're not? You're not a burden?
Yeah, I do. It's
Mm.
taken a while, and when I say a while, like only in the last year have I
Yeah.
accepted that's not the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, a lot of it comes down to I didn't want to be the reason for someone's worry, but the point has been made that they're going to worry anyway.
Exactly. My mum and dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, it doesn't matter if you tell them or not, they're still worrying.
And I think it's about knowing like we need people in different ways as
Yeah.
well. I know for me, I still need my parents quite a lot. They help a lot physically with drop-offs and pickups for my little girl or just taking her to the playground or out. And it's just different. I need them in different ways, but I still feel like I need them. And I have this pressure of I'm mid-30s now. I should not, you know? But when I ended up in ED the other day, my mum was still the first person I wanted. My husband, but when he left, I was like, Mum, please come. You still need your parents, I think.
Definitely. I think the biggest reason as well that I pushed so hard in my 20s was because I didn't have really obvious signs of being sick. So I never knew where I sat in terms of a healthy person versus a chronically ill person. And I really struggled with understanding where I should sit in this world. And I didn't really know where I belonged. I don't know whether that's something you've also experienced.
Yeah, so it's like that you're too healthy for sick people and too sick for healthy people, kind of
Yes.
weird. And you're in this in-between world of where do I exist and where do I sit? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. I've had that as well.
Who do you compare yourself to the most?
I think I personally would compare myself with different versions of myself. Like, oh, well, I could do this maybe a year ago, but I can't do it now, or where my levels of what I could achieve. So I think I would look at myself more and then probably healthy people.
Yeah.
What about you?
I'd be the same. I would say, if anything, it was comparing myself to healthy people. So comparing myself, it was, well, but they can do it. Why can't I do it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But the biggest thing that I've learned, especially over the last few years, is why do we have to prove that you're sick
Mm,
or
mm,
not for that matter? Like, I think it's more like, shouldn't we be showing all of the things that we can do despite it
mm, mm.
being like a little bit harder than someone who maybe doesn't have the same chronic health conditions? But I can imagine, like, and I know I did it as in my teenage years, and you're really the same, where it was comparing my chronically ill body to that of a healthy person and
Yes.
got frustrated that it wasn't like that.
And those standards of milestones that I guess you saw other people reaching and reaching so easily when we knew we either couldn't get there or we had to sacrifice so much to get there.
Yeah, but it's not as simple as that. And I definitely struggled between those two camps. But with hindsight and age, you do start to realize that it doesn't matter. I'm also glad that social media and all of that were new when we were teenagers. I feel for anyone who is in their teenage years or early 20s, surrounded by social media and experiencing similar things that we have, because that compare is always going to be so much more in your face.
Exactly. Would you say that you still put that pressure on yourself to fit in, or do you think that looks different now?
I definitely don't put that pressure on myself
Mm.
anymore.
Mhm.
I don't care. Sometimes to the point where I probably should care a little, a little bit. You get to a point where it just doesn't matter. What about yourself?
I think motherhood opened up that wound again, but I'm at a place now where I just don't have the energy to worry about, or the capacity to worry about trying to fit in like I used to. Maybe my life does look different and my friendships look different and what I can do looks different, but that's okay. I'm a lot more, I would say, at peace with things now, which feels really lovely to say after hearing both what we've been through and those emotions. I can wholeheartedly say I'm a lot more at peace with things now. And that's just a lovely, nice way to be feeling. And it doesn't take away from the hard. It just means there's that grace that wasn't there before and that kindness.
That's a really good point, though, because it doesn't take away the hard. But
Mm.
for anyone listening who is in the hard
Mm.
right now, you will get to a point where it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you'll find your people, you'll find what you're meant to do, you'll find everything is, and it sounds so cliche to be like, everything's going to fall into place. But I just really encourage anyone who's struggling right now to really hold on. And we've both been in those really dark, hard places. And I'm just really proud of us both that we've managed to always find that little bit of hope and that spark and that joy to still cling on to, because it has changed and it's got different, but it's got easier in the sense it's not that constant battle with yourself.
And I think also with that is finding people and surrounding yourself with people who understand. Like you and I reconnected
Mm.
a few years back after, I don't know, 25 years. So it's connecting with people who don't necessarily understand because they haven't been through it,
Mm.
but they understand you. And there's never an expectation. Even recently, I had a friend who's moved away and came back for a weekend, and I felt terrible because I'd been so exhausted from starting this new job. I didn't have the space to catch up with them as much as I had wished. And once they'd gone home, I messaged, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how much of an impact this new job would have. And their response was so beautiful. Basically just said, I did. And so I didn't
I
expect it.
love
And this is
that.
someone, yeah, someone who doesn't know because they haven't experienced it themselves, but are close enough to me to know it's taking that burden, and it felt really lovely. So, yeah, finding your people is so important.
Yeah. My social groups definitely got smaller. I know who I need. If I need to pick up the phone or text someone, I know who is going to be there. And that's such a beautiful gift. And those are the people you really cherish. And I'm really thankful for. And just my own little family. I think when you can let that guard down and just truly be yourself, not chronic illness or not, we all just want to be able to be ourselves and be seen for who we truly are. And I think when you're chronically ill, that's a lot more amplified. When you find those people, that's such a beautiful reason of why you keep going.
Yeah, and why you can just show up and be you, and there's no questions asked. And I think that's the sign of a true friendship. And also finding a group of people who like to nap during the day, even if they're not chronically ill. The
Yeah.
fact that they're on board with it, please
You're
go.
my people.
So there's been parts of our lives that we felt like we didn't fit in with, was because we were a kid and didn't think we fitted in because we couldn't run around like the rest of the kids, or whether we were teenagers and try to be individual and be yourself, but deny the fact that there's this ginormous part of you that you're not facing, all the way through to 20s where you're still trying to fit in and also accept who you are. And it's tricky, but you get to a point where all that's happened in our pasts have led us to where we are and made us stronger, even though I'm still not 100% sure whether I like the idea of being strong.
I've had enough of being strong now.
Can someone else be strong? What are your takeaways from this?
It's just been really interesting to see that shift in both of us that I touched on before. We've both gone through immense struggles trying to fit in and pushing ourselves to fit this mold and keep up. But I think it's really lovely to see where we're sitting today. And I'm just really thankful that little Harriet and little Livy always kept going, even when we thought we couldn't, because it's a hard life, but it's a beautiful life.
Yeah, the biggest thing is if you are going through it right now and you are a teenager or in your 20s, or you've just been diagnosed and you don't know what life is going to look like, the problem we've found here is we've tried to fit in or tried to stay a certain way and be like everyone else. Just try and focus on you, because as soon as you work that out, everything else falls into place.
That is 100% the key.
Yeah, and it's okay to have struggles and have the why me's. I definitely still have the why me moments. Just know that it gets easier and it will be okay. There's so many people who are here to support and help. Your support network is so key. Don't ever feel like you're burdening them, because you're not.
please use them. And you don't have to fit into anything.
No, absolutely not. So that's episode 5 about fitting in, and hopefully we've learned it's okay to be different. And there's no need to squeeze into a form of your old self or someone else. Just be you. And then we'll be back
in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for tuning in.
if you haven't already. Please follow us on whichever listening platform you're on. If you like and leave a comment, that also really helps because it gets our name out there. We're also on socials, so you can find us on Facebook, Outside the Waiting Room, same on Instagram. We're also on TikTok, but because we are
We're a bit scared of
millennials,
TikTok.
we don't know how it works.
I feel like my vulnerable heart can't handle TikTok.
No, I don't understand it, but we're trying.
All right, everyone, you take care, and we will see you again very soon. Thanks for listening.
Bye.